Philip Washington Jr. is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor and/or tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed herein. Past performance is not indicative of future performance. And now, here's Philip.
We are back with another episode of Wealth Building Made Simple. I'm your host, Philip Washington Jr., host of this podcast and Chief Investment Officer of Stonehill Wealth Management. Today we are doing Marriage and Money Part 2. I actually forgot that I said I was going to do a Part 2 until one of my listeners was like, "Hey, I loved your Marriage and Money one you did a couple of weeks ago. When are you going to do Part 2?" And I was like, "Oh, I did say I was going to do Part 2." Right, so this is Part 2. And we're really going to focus on like risk and uncertainty because that's navigating risk and uncertainty is how you build wealth. And so it's tough enough to do it on your own, but then when you have to coordinate navigating risk and uncertainty with two people, right, it becomes a bigger growth opportunity, right? So where I'm going to start is how to build internal emotional wealth, right? And why is that important? Well, because one of the two at least are going to need it to harmonize around navigating risk. Over time, ideally, both can have it, but you need at least one. And what is emotional wealth? Well, religions call it unconditional love, right? But it's the ability to generate your own emotions internally on purpose, right? And that may sound like simple enough, right? You might go, yeah, like I can generate my own emotions internally, right? But it's if most of us are honest with ourselves, we allow way too often outside experiences and circumstances to generate our emotions, right? Perfect example, the media and the stock market reports negatively about the economy and the world going on, and that generates an external emotion that we take on, right? And so by the way, like, that's part of normally being a human. So I'm not saying that emotional wealth is becoming completely immune to that, but it's going, once you get affected, you're infected and you know how to create the cure internally, right? So that's emotional wealth. And so the way that you do that is to, I'm gonna do the simple term before I go into risk, because we're gonna navigate risk, but is you want to become aware that, as I mentioned on a previous podcast, your beliefs are your beliefs, right? And your beliefs is sort of like a car, right? Like we bought a new car, we love it, and now we are seeing it's a Lincoln Aviator, and so we're seeing Lincolns everywhere, right? Before we bought it, we didn't see Lincolns. Now we're seeing them everywhere, right? So beliefs work the same way. Like whatever your belief is, no matter what it is, once you own the belief, then you begin to see that belief as truth expressed everywhere, right? And so it starts with that understanding. And so in order to shape your own beliefs, I feel it's important to have quiet time daily to become aware of your beliefs, right? I like to use journaling, right? I like to journal and writing. When you write and you journal, if you journal and you don't like feel it, if you write something down and you don't have an emotion around it, then it's not really, not a belief, it's a thought. You know what I mean? Like a belief is infused with emotion. Like, you believe something when you feel some way about it, right? Whether you like the feeling or you don't like the feeling, right? When you write and you feel, that's a belief, right? And so if you're writing and you don't love the way you feel when you write that belief, that's a belief that you want to evolve upwards, right? And you want to be mindful that, it's going to be tough to just quantum jump beliefs, right? So if you have a belief and you don't want to feel that way, jumping to where you want to feel may not be possible, but you want to, what I call go from disbelief to hope, right? And then hope to belief, right? And it's a process that takes time. But become aware of how you feel is kind of the first step, right? So understand beliefs are what create what you experience, right? And then become aware of your beliefs through writing, which is the easier way. And then I like to use meditation, relaxing techniques to sort of soften the barriers around those beliefs that I don't like so I can reprogram my beliefs, right? So I'm saying it to say that's going to be foundational for one or both of you to do when you're navigating marriage and money, because it's going to require you're gonna say, hey, we want to become wealthy, right? And in order to become wealthy, you're going to have to do things that take actions towards things that a lot of people like don't see, right? So I give an example. Let me give a real example. So right now, I read an article that Tesla which is a company I like. There's all these articles now saying, Tesla's scrapping the EV market, right? Something like that. They're betting on AI and battery technology, right? And so this is if you understand media, they sort of have group think, right? One person writes one, they all do it. So if and then right, Tesla went down because of quarterly earnings, and so you may go, well, man, we own Tesla, or we're thinking about buying Tesla. Now maybe I shouldn't, because they're abandoning their strategy, right? They're actually not. Like, if you actually understood and went into Tesla strategy, you would understand the making of the cars was just part one of a bigger strategy, which the battery technology is sort of like the engine of the new cars. If you combine battery technology with the artificial intelligence, right, that's the value of Tesla. Like Apple's operating system is the value of Apple, right? The phones or whatever, right? They're cool, but the operating system and that ecosystem is the value. AWS and Amazon is the most profitable part of Amazon, right? And their AI understanding of logistics and how to get around. Like, anybody can create a marketplace to sell stuff, right? But those two are the key components, the soul of the companies. Most people, when they're investing on the surface level expression of the idea versus understanding the soul and the guts of it. The soul and the guts of Tesla is the fact that they have the best battery technology, right? And they have more cars, more experience, more data of cars on the road. And that's the valuable part. So there are going to be other companies that sell EVs, right? Because like people like Lincolns or whatever, but when you actually buy one and we got a hybrid and you look at the batteries and you go, oh man, these batteries suck relative to Tesla, right? And so then the market has to catch up with that idea, right? You're gonna have a period of time where you know something, right, and everybody else is not knowing it. But in order to first know it, you have to sort through your own emotions that are triggered by disbeliefs, right? Planted or unplanted by other car companies. That's a whole conversation. You know what I mean? But you got to navigate those emotions to be firm on your idea and to wait for everybody to catch up, because the waiting, right? The gap is when the world mind catches up with what you know, right? That gap is where the money is made. And so that's in every aspect of investing. In that difference, like that gap, is what we call uncertainty or risk, because it's a time between now and in the future. And so navigating that takes an insane amount of emotional intelligence. Like, because again, going back, I've just given you the game on Tesla. I've given you the game on a lot of different technologies, right? So understanding that is not overly difficult, right? Navigating your emotions through the gap is the most important one. So that's why it's important to be able to generate your own emotions, right? Understand your beliefs, right? And I'm not saying I've given you a very detailed analytical breakdown of Tesla. So like, building your own beliefs is not just blindly reaching to the sky and saying, I believe this is going to happen. It's like, no, it's like looking at it with a clear perspective, right? Analyzing the quote unquote facts as they are today with the least amount of bias, right? That's how you build your beliefs. The thing is, most people are, especially as we get older, we are analyzing the world through our biases and we're calling it facts, right? We look at the world and we go, oh, this is how it is. This is, blah, 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 based on my experience or based on this smart person's experience. I listened to this podcast, or I read this book and they said this. And I'm like, clear your mind, create your own perspective by neutrally looking at the world and understanding it. And it gets real clear. You know what I mean? It gets super clear when you look at it through a clear perspective. But if you look at it through a distorted perspective, or what I call with like specks on your glasses, old opinions, right? Then you can't see. And you go and you wonder, oh man, I just don't understand it. Well, you don't understand it because you believe your own bullshit, right? You like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm saying that I want to wake you up, and I'm just saying, like, not that like your opinion is was bullshit in the past, right? But today it's no longer relevant, and that's okay, right? Because opinions evolve, right? And I feel like that's the biggest part of navigating uncertainty. So one person in a household wants to be able to internally regulate, right, their emotions, right, which will allow them to clearly see where things are going, to be patient, to allow their partner to go through their own learning process without pushing against their ideas, right, which is super hard in the beginning, or at least that's been the experience of people that I know. But you want to work through that, right? Because taking risk as a couple with facts alone, I think is a big mistake, because facts as we perceive them are automatically filled with distortions, and so you can't just say, let's read some intellectual books on how this works. Well, you and your partner can read the same book and come across the same sentences and the same paragraphs and get two totally different interpretations based on like your past history. And so that's something that you have to navigate, right? Even the point of getting your partner to actually like read the books, right? Maybe you might gain data through reading. They might gain data through a different way. You know what I mean? Like there's all kind of factors that come into learning information. But if you start with, hey, like we want to be wealthy, right? This is what we can become compatible around. Like we can become compatible around. We know we want to both become wealthy, right? And then you try and then if you take a step into the how, right? We're going to go this route, and this is how we're going to do it. And then if one partner is not comfortable with that how, the temptation is to plow through it, and force a perspective. And that may actually, in the beginning, sort of work if the partner doesn't want to, if they're like a people pleaser, but down the road, when there's volatility or uncertainty in a situation, it's going to create a lot of stress that you got to deal with later. And so it's going to be important to go as far as you can go in the conversation, and then once you've gone there, sort of, and when you feel some resistance, right, just stay there, and then just spend more time on, I don't know how to say it, more time in meditation, in thoughts, in beliefs, getting your own emotions right about it, so that you can find a way to help your partner along. I want to give like another example that I think will help. Will help. I'm gonna change some names and stories right now, so I can protect the innocent. But I knew a couple And so one couple was very financially comfortable with money and risk. The other person in the relationship was not so comfortable. Like, they like nice things and they knew they wanted money, but like the nitty gritty of how to get it and the patience and all that kind of stuff, they really just didn't have, right? And so one person was like, "Hey, this is a new developing area, and it was early on in the relationship. This is a new developing area of town. It's not really pretty right now, but all of my contacts and network says this is going to be the place to be in about a decade. So maybe we should buy here. We can buy relatively inexpensive." And the other partner was like, "I don't," they had a list of reasons why they didn't like it, right? Because they were focused on like the way it looked now and really couldn't see that far into the future, and didn't really in general like uncertainty. They wanted more certainty. And so the other partner, who saw it, had more emotional intelligence, was doing the things that I talk about doing, journaling, right? Very aware of how they felt. Very, had a intuitive understanding that there's lots of paths to get to where you want, right? And you don't need to take that one path. You want to take it together, right? So it can be easier. And so they just sort of waited. And like it took, so they bought in a different area. They ended up, making money on the purchase, not as much as they would have made, but they made money on the purchase. And then after after a decade, right, the other partner became more amenable to thinking along those lines, right? Even today, right, when we talk, right, that partner is not quite ready, but they're at least hearing what the other partner is saying. Now, you might be saying, "Well, man, so like, how was that a win? They missed the opportunity," right? Well, in the decade, because the one partner respected the other partner's opinion on that thing, the other part, the more riskier partner, was able to take risks in other areas. You know what I mean? So the other partner like allowed them to take risks that they never would have took, but because they were, and so they still were able to like make some money in other avenues and other areas. But because that partner didn't drag along the one partner, right, along the way, um, it sort of built a mutual trust and mutual relationship. And the only way I can say it is sort of, when it comes to money, at least, the other partner felt like respected, right, and felt like they were doing what they were doing, um, together, and so that helped them eventually come along to the greater understanding about real estate in this instance that they took. Again, also saying that the other risk the person invested in, which was like some technology stuff, that is a good investment and going to be even a better long-term investment. Um, they were able to do because of the mutual respect, right? And so, going back to what I was saying in the beginning, but it was because at least one of the partners uh, didn't make investment and money decisions with intellect alone, right? They understood the impact of emotions in the overall process and integrated it into their decision making process, right? So I hope this helps. I didn't, this was probably a bit different than most podcasts, but I wanted to sort of weave this into it because this for me, in my experience, watching other people, right, in my life as well, is foundational to how you take risks in a marriage, especially because you're going to have people with two different risk tolerance. And so, you're going to invariably have one that wants to move faster than the other. But, if you look at thoughts and emotions or thoughts and feelings just move slower than thoughts. And when you try and chase a thought outside of your feelings, that creates unbalance and stress that is not necessary. So you want to sort of move as best as you can in harmony so that it makes the process like more enjoyable and easy. And I haven't seen anybody do it perfectly, right? We've all bumped our heads and tried to go too fast and created unaligned outcomes and felt the pain of that. But you learn to dance over time, right? And you find your balance. And once you've done it a few times, you go, cool, if I can avoid this pain, right, I will. Because it goes to believe, because I fundamentally believe that if you're moving in alignment together, 1 + 1 = 3. If you try to do it alone without harmony, you might just get 2. But if you do it together, it may quote unquote take longer, but you're going to get 3, and it's going to be funner. So I hope this helps. Until next week, enjoy yourself.
Philip Washington Jr. is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor and/or tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed herein. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.